Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So now that it's been a full first week in my Sterling Ink Common Planner, then I wanted to go ahead and just share with you some first impressions that I've accumulated over the past week and just do kind of some comparisons between having been a bullet journaler for the past several years and being able to custom create my own spreads, and just compare it to now using a dated planner with more of a structured type of spread. So I just thought that this would be interesting to share with you in case some of you are in the same boat as I am, where you are testing out a new system for 2025 compared to what you had been doing in the past. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So I know in one of my previous videos where I was talking about this planner, then I was basically explaining that I wanted to keep it pretty minimal and not focus too much on the decorating and artistic elements yet until I was more comfortable with the system and just more familiar with it in general. But I honestly don't know what happened. If I'm being completely honest. But then again, I'm also not surprised that this happened. So before we dive right in, this is the very first week in my Common Planner, which I know may look pretty crazy and insane, but as the week went on, I did start to think about it more, and I was wondering why this was happening. And I concluded that this ultimately ended up making sense just because even with my bullet journals, although I didn't decorate every single page with a lot of doodling and stickers and washi tape, I still ended up filling up the page with writing or drawing out my spread. So because of that, then I do consider myself to be more of a maximalist. For instance, I typically prefer to fill up as much space as possible, whether it be with any type of decoration like stickers, washi tape, paintings, doodles, etc., or it could just be the fact that I'm drawing in a box for that space or I'm writing something in for that space. So it's not always the artistic element. It can just be filled with a little journal entry or a little quote or a lyric or something like that. So after thinking about it throughout the week, I feel like this does make sense. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to explain this properly, but I hope that this makes sense because with bullet journaling, because you are typically choosing a blank journal, whether it be a lined journal, graph paper, or a dotted journal, it's all still basically just a blank spread for you to do whatever you'd like with it. And because you have so much freedom, then somehow I feel like that's a little bit more limiting than if you were to use a planner that has a setup that's already pre-made for you, that already somewhat boxes you in. I'm not sure if that is making much sense, but I feel like when you have some sort of limitation, that allows your creativity to flourish and really come out. Compared to if you just have complete freedom, then sometimes you just don't even have any sort of guide or direction, and that can be very crippling. Something that I found helpful with the Common Planner layout is having the vertical weekly. You do get somewhat of a guideline or allotted space per day, and you also have the timetable that you can reference on the side. So there are certain elements that do somewhat limit you already, but I think also one of the reasons why it's so freeing at the same time is because the ruling is relatively light in comparison to some other planners that I've seen online, which I think still allows you some creativity and freedom to go outside of the space if you want to, and you don't have to worry about crossing over any dark borders, which I'm not sure if anyone else feels the same way, but that's something that I personally struggle with, and I didn't notice that that was what I was doing until I started looking into this journal and actually using it. So it kind of just goes back to what I was explaining earlier, where because I would personally box myself into these very harsh, dark lines in my bullet journal, then that basically made me feel as if I couldn't go outside of those lines. That was my boundary. I can't decorate or write anything else outside of this. Everything needs to stay within this very harsh, dark outline. But then here, because it's more of an inviting and soft gray shade, then it's not as daunting if you were to go outside of the lines. So I know that that may be such a minuscule feature, but that's personally something that I truly struggle with. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start experimenting with something like this, where it was already pre-made, so I wouldn't have to go in and draw the lines out myself in what I would typically prefer to be like a very dark pen. But then it's also light enough to where it can be forgiven if I do draw outside of that allotted area. So with that being said, I really wanted to go ahead and explore kind of like the sticker and pasting in type of elements that I tend to see a lot of in like the Hobonichi community as well as the Common Planner community. It seems like it's a pretty popular way to decorate these types of planners, specifically like in this vertical layout. And I think it just adds a little bit more personality and life to the pages compared to if you were to just focus on writing. And because I've mentioned this in some of my previous videos, I'm a very visual person, and so when I get the opportunity to look at an image rather than having to read words, I find that the image speaks a lot more to me and it resonates with me a lot better than having to read something. But yeah, I had a lot of fun setting this up throughout the week. Do I think it's sustainable? Not really, honestly, just because I found myself having to keep a lot of the same tools out, which I usually don't keep out, such as sticker paper and my pair of scissors, as well as my precision tweezers to be able to pick up the stickers and paste them in. But yeah, if you're curious, a lot of these stickers then I just drew myself using like a Sakura Pigma Micron, and I just used my Tombos to color them in, and sometimes I would add like little gold accents using my gold gel pen. Some of these stickers, like these cat ones here, then I believe they're from Midori. And then there are other stickers that I either just printed offline or my sister made them for me. So yeah, I just used a lot of different stickers throughout the week, which I thought was so much fun. I found that it was a lot of fun being able to make and draw stickers that look exactly like the items in my life, such as my journals, and then like our bedding, my Switch and record player, my cats, and it also just allowed me to incorporate like silly memes that I otherwise probably wouldn't really draw, but like this one from Futurama, because I of course had to make another Jet Pens order. And then sticking with the theme that I ended up doing for like my January monthly spread, then I just continued using stickers from this winter mountainscape washi tape roll from the washi tape shop. So I just ended up cutting some in half and pasting them in. So basically as every day came around, then I would just fill the day in as it went on, or whenever I would end up having time to fill it in, then I would just draw a sticker out and then cut it out and paste it in, and then I would write like a little description next to it. And then in terms of planning, something that I found myself doing was that if it didn't have to be done at a specific time, like it was just a task that I wanted to do the following day or one of the days during the week, then I would just end up writing it up here like towards the top. But then if it was something that had to be done like at a specific time, then I would just reference the timetable on the side and then I would just write that next to it. So for instance, then the making the bone broth, then that didn't have to be something that was done like at a specific time. That was just something that I knew I needed to do at some point that day, so that's why I wrote it at the top. But for instance, like when I scheduled some videos on my channel, then I went ahead and just wrote them next to the time that they were scheduled to come out. So that's something that I would like to continue doing in terms of planning, where I would either just write it up top here if it doesn't have to be done at a specific time, or I'll just go ahead and write it next to the time that it needs to be done. And it may be a little bit difficult to see, but I did end up just blocking out like my work schedule. So for my full-time job, then I just used a Sakura Pigma Micron to basically block off that time, as well as any other time blocks that I knew would be occupied doing something else, like a date night for instance. And then in terms of this green stroke, that was basically when I wasn't eating. So that's something that I wanted to be more mindful about, was keeping track of my intermittent fasting. And then the bare areas in between would just be the time that I was eating or consuming things. And then in terms of the day-to-day, then I did try and stick closely to the timetable on the side. And I just kind of wrote out or would make stickers of the things that I would do around that time and just write a little description next to it. There are of course other things that I ended up doing that day, but in terms of things that I wanted to remember or wanted to actually draw out on a sticker, then those were the things that ended up making its way into the weekly spread. I know in my previous videos then I mentioned how I wanted this one to mainly be like my planning and productivity journal, and then have my Hobonichi be more of like the memory keeping side, but that's one of the things that I definitely struggle with, having multiple journals at a time. I've always been more of the type to just have one journal as my daily carry so that I could just incorporate everything together at once. And there is still like the planning and productivity aspect in terms of like the trackers in the beginning, like the yearly tracker and then the habit trackers and whatnot. And then more of like monthly and weekly, daily planning and stuff. I think for the most part this is also still mainly just for like memory keeping for me. As you can see, that's kind of just the way that my brain likes to work, is I'm just a lot more interested in like the things around me, the people around me, so that's something that I tend to prioritize and therefore want to have a better memory of later down the line. So basically, with all this being said, I wanted to just say that I was absolutely not anticipating my first week to look like this, but after some thinking, it did start to make sense later in the week, and it does make sense to me now that it looks like this. So, do I think that it'll continue to look like this the rest of the year? I honestly don't know. I'd say for the most part, it most likely will, unless I end up getting bored of it somehow and wanting to change things up, or if I end up getting like too busy, or if I'm on vacation and I don't have all of my accessories to decorate my page with, then I feel like those would probably be the times where it isn't as chaotic looking as this. But with that being said, I had so much fun opening my planner up multiple times a day and just thinking like, oh, what have I been spending the past few hours doing? And let me go ahead and just draw a little sticker out and then write a little description next to it. Like, I've been finding so much joy in doing it this way compared to what I was doing with my bullet journal, where I would pretty much only open it like once a day, and that would just be like in the morning if I'm like catching up on filling things out from the previous day, planning out what needs to happen for the rest of that day, and if any other plans ended up coming up for the rest of the week, then that was pretty much the only time I would open up my bullet journal. And I just didn't have too many reasons to open it back up and look at it unless I had more things to add or write down. But in terms of the creativity part of it, then it was pretty much just that monthly routine where I would paint my cover page and then set up my monthly doodles page. Then that was basically the extent of my creativity in terms of my previous bullet journaling routine. So I just wanted to note that huge change from just basically like a week ago, from me opening my bullet journal just once a day to me opening this multiple times a day to continue filling out the rest of my day. So I definitely don't think that this is for everyone. I work from home most of the time, so I do have the luxury of being able to quickly draw a little sticker and just paste it in and write a description down next to it. So I definitely understand that this would be very time consuming for a lot of people, but it's something that worked for me for the first week and something that I would like to continue doing and could see myself continue doing for the foreseeable future. So that's all that I wanted to say. In terms of pen usage, just because with my bullet journal, then that was like the 160 GSM paper, it was a lot thicker, and this is, I believe, 52 GSM, so significantly thinner. I have to say that so far I haven't noticed really any issues with this paper. I think that the paper has been very smooth and quite satisfying to write on. But one thing that I was definitely more aware of compared to in like the Archer and Olive journals was just the dry time for my gel pens. So for the majority of the things on this page, then like for the writing down of tasks and whatnot, then I used my Uniball Signo DX gel pen. This is the 0.28 size. It's honestly my favorite. It writes very fine and it's very small, so I think it's perfect for this size of a journal. And because it's a gel pen, then I did have to be more cautious of its smearing after I would write. So that's just another thing that I wanted to note in terms of my experience with the first week. Well, that is it for all of the things that I wanted to share with you regarding the first week in my Common Planner. I'm really looking forward to continuing to use this and just see how it evolves over the course of the year. Let me know how your first week went in your new planner. Let me know what you're using and what you think of it so far. Are you trying anything new for this year? I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.